and welcome everyone to Pitching Faster. And my name is Kim Gwydir, and I've been doing this for a really long time. It's crazy to think about that now. And I was mentioning earlier that Coach Stephanie, who has Strikeout Inc. in New York, is one of my students, and I started with her when she was 12. And I now have my college players, I'm now teaching their children. So I've been doing this. What that means is I'm getting up there in age, and I've been doing it a long time. So I think this is something, and I don't do this because I'm an egotistical maniac. I do this because I, as an instructor, as a college professor, I want to hear someone's credentials. If somebody is established and has the credentials, then I'm going to listen to them. If somebody has not put in the time or someone has not had the experience, then I have to question whether they have the experience to tell me what to do. So I want to let you know my experience to help you understand where I've come from and how I've gotten here. So coached college softball, Division I for 10 years, known for our pitching. We always had pitchers on the all-conference team all the way through. Coached at Division I at Florida International University, where we were in the top 25. We went to regionals, all those great things. Also coached for a number of years at CW Post College on Long Island, where we were Coach of the Years. We won many, many titles and things like that. I've had students, I've been blessed to have a student who's won a gold medal for Team USA. I've had kids who played on, can't say kids anymore. I've had young ladies who played on the national teams for Canada as well as the US. National championships, I've had pitchers from our facility who have gone on to the Division I National Championship, the Division II National Championship, and the Division III National Championship. I've now, at this point in my career, coached hundreds of players who've gone on and pitched to college. And our new venture, which couldn't have come at a better time, it's really not that new. We've been teaching online for almost 10 years now with Virtual Softball Academy, where we can take our instruction and bring it to students. One of my Tennessee students is on now. She's from a small town in Tennessee, and there's not a lot of coaches. I have another client out in Oregon who, they don't have access to a coach nearby. So this is terrific that we can bring instruction to people all over the country. Currently, I have a facility in Florida called USA Elite Training, and I have a lot of terrific young students. And I've coached not only in the college ranks, but in travel ball. Coach Stephanie was part of an organization in New York called the Long Island Chargers that I started. And then I went on to coach with a team called Gold Coast Hurricanes in Florida, where we won a national title at ASA Gold back when there was only one national title. And we had a terrific team and some phenomenal pitchers. Now, today what we're going to talk about is how to increase speed. And if you have anybody in your softball life who's telling you speed is not important, they're probably not able to tell you how to get faster. So let me explain to you specifically, because like I said, I'm a mathematician by trade. I not only coach softball, but I teach mathematics, and I'm very black and white. And I'm going to give you some concrete things instead of just waving my hands. And speed comes from a couple of things. Number one, you have to sequence your mechanics correctly. If the mechanics are out of sequence, you will not maximize your speed. Number two, your player has to get stronger. Stronger players pitch faster. It improves their speed of their motion. It improves their arm speed. It improves their balance. Your kid doesn't have any leg drive. Well, are her legs strong? And then number three, and this I think is the hardest thing right now in this generation, is intentional practice. They have to practice. All right, correct sequence of mechanics. Let's talk about that first, because like I said, during this time of quarantine, it's been making me crazy what I see on social media, making me crazy. Whoops, jumped a slide there. First thing, we're starting on the mound. We want to pitch from a position that we call push to pivot. Physics will always win. When your initial move off the mound needs to be straight ahead. One of the easy things to fix is what I call a pre-turning. You can see here in this picture, when we come off the mound, our feet need to be pointed straight ahead. I know it seems simple, and to some of you are going, oh, this is going to be a really basic talk. Let me start here, and I'll work forward. You need to make sure that when you start on the mound, you cannot have your body pointing anywhere but at the catcher. Your hips, your shoulders, your feet, your knees need to be pointed straight ahead. Pre-turning your foot takes you out of sequence. Next, you need to get your weight in the right spot. Many of our players get on their front foot. It's just like a hitter. If you end up with the weight on your front foot early, you're going to fly your front shoulder. When you fly your front shoulder, you lose speed. You lose power as a hitter. So another quick speed killer is what I call no high knee. Now, this is one of my students who's currently in college, and look at her knee height. She worked very, very hard to get that knee height. So our goal is this knee height. Now, will all of our players be able to get this knee height right away? No, but that is what we are going for. That is the goal. You want to get that knee so that the thigh is level to the ground. We have a terrific drill. Tonight isn't so much about drills. It's more about the mechanics and how to do this. But the idea, we'll talk about drills later too. But there are drills to help you get a high knee. Now, telling somebody she's not getting her knee high enough is not good coaching. You have to teach her how to do it. Part of it is when she brings her knee up. So like I said, we're going to talk about the idea of push to pivot. So take a look at that knee height. That is something you want to see in your pictures. Here is a big one. Push to pivot. Now, let me say this very carefully. Not all of our young pitchers will be able to do this right away, because this is what the top end, the hard throwing girls, this is what they are able to do. They are able to get their hips turned. I was listening the other day to somebody, and again, it's social media makes me crazy. All these names we have for things. Forearm fire. There's something called, I think it's HE. I mean, we have all these names because people want to throw a name on it on social media. Let me explain what we've been teaching as good mechanics for 25 years. The best pitchers are able to get their hips turned quicker because that is going to help them get power. Now, I want you to notice this again is the goal. I am a big person on showing models. I literally just sent video to one of my virtual students from tonight because she wasn't able to get what I was trying to explain to her. We need to show them what to do right. Now, again, not everyone is going to get this at their age. And I want you to notice the upper left, obviously she's on Team USA. If you know that girl on the lower left, that's Kelly Barnhill, and she threw close to 70 miles an hour. The one in the middle is Kalani Ricketts, same position. The one on the bottom right is one of my students, Madison Canby, and I love putting her up there because she was like 5'4", 5'3", and she threw 64 miles an hour because she had phenomenal mechanics. And the one on the upper right is one of my young students who is working on this idea. And you will notice she's working on getting her body turned. She's not quite in the same exact position as the other girls are. You know why? She's not as strong. But she is looking at those other pictures and trying to model herself after them. Now, what I want you to notice is the idea of, remember we started with the toes pointed straight ahead. You push straight ahead off the rubber, then your knee goes up, then you turn. Now, I want you to look at this body position. Our exceptionally hard throwers, and again, let's take out extraordinarily tall girls. You have to, there's always exceptions to every rule. And usually it's an exception because somebody is exceptionally tall. Monica Abbott, exceptionally tall. There are some girls who are exceptionally big. And I'm saying that as a big girl myself. So if you are heavier, you have the potential to throw harder. It's physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. If you are older, you are able to be stronger. You are able to turn quicker. Look at Kelly Barnhill's body. And this is what because anything I tell you today, I want you to go and look at the best pictures. And you will see there's a difference between mechanics and style. And mechanics are what all good pitchers do. Style is those little nuances. But you will see the same mechanics in all hard throwers. Look at those superior hard throwers. Their back knee can actually turn past the 90 degrees. Now, Kalani Ricketts, I don't think gets that far turned, but if you ever met Kalani Ricketts, she's a really tall girl. Madison is not as tall, and you see Madison gets that turn. Now you'll see Mackenzie's the girl on the upper right who doesn't know I'm using her tonight, but she's working on her turn. She works every day on a drill we call push to pivot. And that's a drill where we work on balance and getting to this position. I also want you to notice their arms are extended out to the catcher. So the gold standard when you watch the older girls is by the time their hands get extended out to the catcher, you will see their back hip is turned. Now you will notice Barnhill is actually more open than most. So that's why she is able to throw as hard as she is. Now look at the leg position also. Look at the height of her leg. Look at the height of Madison's leg. So here's those two pictures again. The glove side matters. If your glove side is flying open, it is going to take your shoulder and your front hip with it, and it will get you out of your sequence of mechanics. Notice how sideways their upper body is, where their bottom half is in that open position. So the glove side matters. Again, there's always some variability into these things, but if you watch the best pitchers, you will see a really strong movement with the glove and the ball to the catcher. That helps them set up their power line. We all know they're supposed to step on this power line, but telling them they're off the power line is not helping them. Putting cones next to them may help them because they will figure out how to do it. But a lot of times our students get off the power line because their glove side and their front shoulder are flying open. You've been using a term lately called an intentional glove side, where they intentionally put energy into that glove side. And a great drill that we've been using is, and actually Julia, one of the pitchers earlier, actually helped me come up with this drill. She holds an 11-inch ball in her glove and she pitches with that ball in her glove. And if she flies her glove side completely open, that ball flies out of her hand. So she has to squeeze that ball. That is a great glove side drill for the people who fly open. All right, now here's another speed killer. Another speed killer is what I call overstriding. This is another one that makes me nuts because there are some well-meaning people out there who are telling pitchers to jump out as far as they can. That is not correct. I cannot make that one nice. Jumping out as far as you can is not good coaching. It isn't, because not everyone can jump out as far as they can and maintain balance. Many times when our students jump out too far, their back foot comes off the ground and they're illegal. So one of the things that I like to point out, let's see if we can get this video where let's see if we can play this. Now you'll notice this young lady's back foot is coming off the ground. She is one of my favorite students in the world because she works so hard, but she had a coach who was telling her to jump out as far as she could. And she can't do that and keep her back foot down. So let me give you some advice on the whole striding thing. When we talk about striding, now this is one of my students, Mia. What she does, and I've been doing this for, like I said, 25 years. And I have been working on stride length with young players up to my college girls. And I have the hard throwers. I've had girls who've thrown 70 miles an hour. I can name the two of them. I'm not going to right now. 70 miles an hour is freaking legit. And they stride the same length as the girls, other girls on my college. They're not striding longer. So what we do is we work on the player's foot length. So you'll notice Mia is taking heel to toe with her feet, and she's going out 5.5 steps. And you'll notice that's our mat at my facility. And what we're doing is we're putting, you'll notice on our mat, we have a piece of tape because most of the girls are, believe it or not, their feet are pretty much the same size. Now we've got a couple of girls who go a little longer, a little shorter, but our young pitchers, and by young pitchers, I mean the ones who have not gone through a significant strength program, a real strength program with a strength coach. My college girls got out longer, but you'll see Mia went 5.5 steps and she's going to put down that piece of rope to help guide her stride. Now, what will happen, now you'll see that extra half. I've been doing this a long time. My college kids got out to 6.5 steps. Every one of them but one. And that girl had exceptional balance. She was actually a gymnast when she was younger, and she was very slight. And yes, she got a little extra speed because she had a little extra stride. I currently have a young student who strides out farther than the recommended amount, but we constantly work on her leg strength. And she probably, at her age, has some of the strongest legs I have ever seen. So she is exceptional, because she has worked on having stronger legs than the average kid her age. But for the most part, 5.5 steps is the starting point where they can maintain their posture and not lean on their front foot. Once we've gotten the weight up on our front foot, we're going to lose leg drive. You're going to tell the kid she's not using her legs properly, but then you're telling her to jump out as far as she can. You can't do both. You can't. You've got to get that knee up at the beginning. We have to have weight on our back foot to help us drive through the ending of the pitch. That's leg drive. So again, 5.5 steps is a great way to start. And that stride length will naturally get longer as they get stronger. You do not have to keep telling them to go out farther. Very few times have I had a kid not take an aggressive stride. I can't even think of one. Everybody wants to jump off the mound, and I never use that word jump. Remember, your verbiage is going to help them understand what they want. That's why I keep using the same terms, push to pivot. I get their stride length. We talk about leg drive. We talk about pinching the knees. So this is a great way to understand the stride length, about 5.5 steps. Another great drill to decide if their stride length is appropriate is to be able to finish with a high knee. Let's see if I can get that drill. Now watch Mia finishing. She comes up, and again, I don't want her doing this in a game, because in a game, you have to field the ball. But this is my test now. If they can balance and drive that knee through, they can have their stride length. If they can't, then they're leaning too far forward. So that is a great way to help your pitcher understand if their posture's in the right place. So using this idea of driving through with a high knee, and with Jacine Espinal is the player I'm talking about, if she's listening, her test is always, can she finish with a high knee? If she can't, then she's striding out too far. But again, 5.5 steps is a great starting point for our young pitchers who have not gone through a strength program. Telling them to jump out as far as they can is not good coaching. So it's more than that. If it was that easy, everyone would do it. And it's not that easy. So our next person, so let me go to our next idea. This is the reason this is coming after jumping out too far, is this is sometimes the result of jumping out too far. So we call it dropping the anchor. Our pitchers know that if their weight's on their front foot, they're going to fall on their face if they don't do something dramatic, because they know most of the time that they're not supposed to lean forward. We tell them don't lean. And we also tell them don't walk through. Please tell me you're not telling your pitchers to walk through. That's not good mechanics either. So many times we'll see the back foot lay on the ground like this. And this has been one of my toughest things to work with, because players do this. This is like you're treating the disease or you're treating the symptoms. The disease here is that their weight got on their front foot too soon. The symptom is that you see this at the end. So we've always tried to treat the ending of the motion instead of treating the beginning of the motion that's causing it. And actually, I'm going to show all of you a device that I've come up with, because really the reason this is happening is because of an improper push to pivot. And that these young ladies who are dropping the anchor at the end, and it looks painful, they are in this position because they got on their front foot too soon, and they're trying not to lean forward. So they're dropping this anchor down to try and keep weight on their back foot. So this is something, when you see it, Most of the time, this is caused from something at the beginning of the motion, an improper push to pivot, that their head has gotten too far forward in their pre-motion and that they weren't able to get their body transition, to get their hip turn and get their weight to stay where it needs to throughout the motion. They allow their weight to get too far forward, and as a result, you see this with their back foot. We'll get to that in a minute. But I want to show you proper leg drive. Now, this is a young lady who I love to show her video. She was one of my pitchers on Gold Coast Hurricanes. She ended up at LSU. And what a phenomenal team I got a chance to coach when I was with Gold Coast. Our #1 pitcher went to University of Florida, won a couple national titles, was 4-time All-American. Our other pitcher went to Alabama. She was All-American. Our third pitcher was this young lady. She was a year younger. She was our #1 the following year. And she went to LSU, and she threw in the upper 60s, and she was very average in height for a pitcher. I believe she was about 5'6", 5'7", but her mechanics were so spot on. Her attention to detail on her mechanics was amazing. And you could see some of those things that we've talked about. You could see the open position with her bottom half. You could see her glove side intentional. And this is kind of where I got that idea about holding a ball in the glove to improve the glove side. It looks like her hand, she's almost squeezing it. It's a great drill. Now, some other little details. #1, injury. I've had a lot of kids who threw hard and got hurt. You know what? We want them to throw hard, but there are things mechanically that will hurt them. You can still throw hard and throw mechanically and properly, but you will be injured. So I want you to remember a couple of proper mechanics that are non-negotiable. The left foot for her front foot has to land at 45. If the front foot is not landing at 45, your pitcher will get hurt eventually. She'll hurt her knee. She'll hurt her hip, because our knee has to bend and absorb all that power that we're sending off the rubber. If that knee is not in a proper position to cushion that landing, you are going to hurt your front leg in some way, shape, or form, or you're going to hurt your back. And the same idea, we do not want a walking through. The walking through, remember, women have hips. Their hips go out, which is why one of the reasons why female pitchers have to pitch differently than men, because men do not have female hips. They do not go out. Women have to use proper leg drive. They need to pinch their knees in order to clear their back hip, because if your kid is whacking her hip, she is going to A, hurt herself, or B, create some other mechanic where she's stepping off the power line to fix it. So I want you to watch this young lady's legs as she's finishing. Do you notice what she did? I'm going to play it again. Her knee turns in, and we all want a kid to have a whippy arm. I don't know if you can see it because I know it gets a little grainy here, but hopefully you can see my pointer. The ball is back here. What is a whippy arm? It is not a T. Please don't say T. What we want is everything you say is a very powerful visual image for your player. Words give mental imagery. When you give T, you're locking their elbows. Don't say T. I get rid of that word T. Do you notice that? Hopefully you can all see my cursor. You can see her elbow comes in first, and this is the ball back there. So in order to get arm whip, this part of the arm stabilizes, and the ball back here whips through. You see that? Her shoulder stabilized. She's actually throwing a curveball. It happened to be the pitch I watched that day. I'm sitting in the dugout taking this video. But you'll notice her hip goes from, she actually was one of those over rotators. And not everyone can do that. You have to have tremendous hip flexibility. You have to have tremendous balance. And this is what this kid had. This kid used to warm up with ankle weights on. I was so impressed with her. She warmed up before games with ankle weights on, because when she got to the game, it was easier. But look at what she's able to do. Her bottom half is open, and then that knee turns in. And she's pinching her knees together. See her knees go together? That's what you want to see. Now, again, this is a curveball, not a fastball. So her shoulder's coming around. But you see that knee turn in as the knees are pinching. And she is not going to walk through. Again, it's a curveball, not a fastball. So her shoulder is coming around a little bit, but that's because she's throwing a curveball. All right, let's see if this video will play. This is her from the beginning of the pitch. Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can get this. Okay, beginning of the pitch. That's that. We call it a stacked position. Now, nowadays you are legally able to move your back foot off the rubber, which is a godsend for tall pitchers. The fact you had to make a girl who was 6 feet tall have her feet in the same position a girl was 5'1" was not fair. Taller people, in order to get into their legs, need to have their feet wider because their legs are longer. So it is a godsend for a taller pitcher. But just moving your foot back is not going to make you faster. So the idea that we want is, let's see if we can get this to go slow. Watch her knee height. Remember that knee height we talked about? Remember we said earlier that knee level to the ground. Notice the intentional. Now, her glove doesn't go to the catcher as much as her elbow. That's her style. But watch this next piece. Her elbow is still going out to the catcher, and now she gets that glove going out there. That was her style, but you can see her elbow, which is the same thing as the glove. The elbow goes out to the catcher here, and look at that front leg, and look at the open. Look at her back hip. Like I said, she was gifted in that she could over-rotate that back hip and get more open than the average bear. Look at her arm. We call this ball on the wall. Her ball is not going to be teeing. It's going to be open and sketching a path like it was on the wall. Like you're taking the ball around on the wall. Look at that. For my younger kids, I call it a karate chop hand. They want to come down like they're karate chopping with their hand. And you'll notice the slight bend in her elbow. We are not coming down with a locked arm. I cannot emphasize that enough. Notice we have something called resistance. She is against her front leg. Her head is behind that front leg. It's not falling forward over it. Those are all those keys that we've been talking about, and you'll see that knee pinch going on right there. And you'll see when she was so aggressive with this pinch that you will see dirt kick up on her back foot. That's telling you she has weight on that back leg and she's driving it through. That's what you want when we're talking about leg drive. So here is, if we all know who this is Rachel Garcia, amazing pitcher. We're going to see a lot of the same things. Now, remember, we're allowed to have the foot back now. You couldn't have that back in the day. So she has a little different style at the beginning, but watch the similarities. Look at the chest up at this point. Look at the knee height. Let's see if I can get this to play. I took this obviously off social media. Let's see. Oh, come on. We can do this. Look at the knee going up, the same knee height that we've been talking about. Look at that knee height. The intentional glove side. Now, one thing I could say is she could do a better job with her glove side. I know that's like blasphemy. She gets her glove going forward, but she could do a better job with her glove side. But who are we to say? She's so strong, though, that even though her glove is over here, her shoulder stays in. I don't recommend that for younger kids. She is way strong. Look at her legs. Look at those legs. Look at those thighs. Even though her glove side is not still pointed at the catcher, her shoulder is still in. And she still has that idea of resistance, even though her glove side could be better. But she is way stronger than our 12-year-olds. Front foot at 45, and watch the leg pinch. You'll see that big pinch at the end again. The same thing we saw from Rachel in the last one. The other girl was named Rachel also, by the way. Maybe it's the name. If you want your kid to be a pitcher, name her Rachel. Driving the knee up with weight on that back foot. Look at that pinch. Now, she does her pinch a little differently. I call it the Lisa Fernandez figure four legs. Lisa Fernandez, who's the pitching coach at UCLA, did that a lot. She lifted her back foot up and she drove that back leg into the front leg to have that very aggressive pinch at the end. But you'll notice again, those same body mechanics that we've been talking about. Now, fixing leg drive. And this is going to be my shameless plug to what I've been doing. So one of the things that, aside from working on, and we're going to talk about drills in a moment, one of the things that we've been working on is these resistance bands. And one of the things that's going to help your pitchers is to force the back leg to do things properly. Now, you will notice this is my player Kalia that you saw earlier. And you'll notice on the left, her foot is flat on the ground. Notice on the right, the same day and the same lesson, it's not. So what we are doing is we are forcing that back leg to do the right thing. We're forcing it to turn in, and we're forcing it to be used properly. These exercise bands are pitching specific. They can practice in them. They will leg strengthen, and they are going to force their back leg to do the right thing. Watch how in the same day, she's wearing the same clothes. Watch how her back knee functions differently on the right than it did in the left. Kalia hates these bands, but she loves these bands because they make her do it right. Every time they pitch, it forces them to do it right. And now Coach Stephanie, one of my friends again, she's using these with her players, and a lot of my students around the country are using them. It's forcing you to be, it's forcing the student to do it correctly, and it helps you become a better coach because it forces her to do it right, and it strengthens their legs. So that's at my company, fasterballsports.com. And there's actually 2 sets of bands. The green bands are easier. A lot of our younger and beginner students start with those, and then they work their way up to the stronger bands. There is not another softball-specific product like this. I developed this in the last 2 years. I've tried every stretch band on the market, and I want quick results. My clients want quick results. So here's another thing. Do drills really work? And I have a little different idea on this than you think. Number 1, drills are mandatory for my young students. If you're a beginning pitcher with me, you are going to go through the same set of drills every day because I am teaching your body the proper mechanics, and then we are going to stitch it together in a full motion. So in a building block approach for my young pitchers, my beginners, the ones I get from scratch, they are doing specific movements. Think of it like somebody learning martial arts. Even when you watch the masters do martial arts, they do the movements slowly. That's not because they fight slowly. It's because they are teaching, you know, muscles really don't have memory. There's this whole thing called myelin, and when your muscles do the same actions over and over, they become more conductive to the energy, the electricity that goes through them. So you must practice intentionally if you want the mechanics to be there, because every time you do the motion the same way, your body puts more myelin around those nerves so that the signal goes quicker. If your mechanics are different every time, that doesn't happen and you are inconsistent. So if you're a young pitcher, drills are extremely important because they will teach your body how to do the movements correctly, and you will have that. It's always easier to teach a kid with no mechanics because it's harder to teach a kid with bad mechanics or improper mechanics because it's harder to unteach something. So I love kids who practice, but they have to, practice does not make perfect, it makes permanent. So they must practice intentionally with the correct form, and they must do it slowly. You cannot do something 100 miles an hour or 100% and think it's going to be perfect because it's not. You have to pitch that way, and this is something we talk about in mental toughness, about practice mode versus performance mode, but your practice has to be intentional and it has to be perfect. Then, as we get older, I have had many students, most of the time they're kids who didn't start with me, who do drills one way and their motion looks completely different. And that is one of the hardest things to coach because there is a disconnect. Basically, they get 2 different things going on. They have the mechanics for their drills and they have the mechanics for their motion. And that's some of the hardest stuff and the most frustrating and requires more intention than anything else. Is you have to make these things go, these things meaning mechanics, go into your full motion. And I know I'm over my half hour already, but I'm really passionate about all of this. So the idea of the belt that we created was to have something that forced them to do these correct mechanics in full motion. And a lot of the reason why they can't is because they're not strong enough. And again, you know, I've coached boys in baseball and I've coached girls in softball. And the big difference is girls lack some strength that boys have when they are born. And what we need to do is understand we have to make them stronger. Stronger pitchers throw ball harder. And a lot of the times our upper body is strong. These kids are doing arm circles on the knee, like from jump, from the first day. But do we really strengthen their legs? We make their upper body stronger, but we don't strengthen their legs. So here are some guidelines. Number one, focus on speed. You need to throw 50 miles an hour before you throw a breaking pitch. Your kid does not have 6 pitches at 12. I'm sorry to break it to you. She does not. Because a ball will, just because it's outside does not make it a curveball. Just because it's inside does not make it a screwball. A ball has to have a certain amount of revolutions and have to be going a certain speed to actually break. And until you've seen a breaking pitch actually break, you really don't know. So nobody has a rise ball at 12. Just because the ball is high does not make it a rise ball. So for good mechanics, you need to stay the course, because we're going to get to the why in a minute. 50 miles an hour before they throw a breaking pitch. I am big on speed. You know, in our facility, many of you, if you've been there, I have a 60-mile-an-hour club that we keep on the wall as a Hall of Fame. And then I have a board celebrating all of our speed improvements, because speed matters. Now, again, speed without strikes, I'm not counting, because you can have both. If you do the mechanics properly, you can get speed. 60 miles an hour is the goal. Why is that? If you want your kid to go to college and play softball, if your kid wants to go to college and play softball, the first thing college coaches do is whip out the radar gun. And no college coach is looking for 6 pitches. They first want to know if you throw hard, because that is going to take you a long way. When you throw hard, the changeup is more effective. When you throw hard, the breaking pitches are more effective. So speed with strikes is your priority. Next, there is no magic dust. You know, I used to joke about the magic dust thing. People want you to come in there and come to a lesson and give them a drill and their kid's going to be fixed. It doesn't work like that. It takes correct instruction, proper form, and practice. There is no magic dust. Nobody can sprinkle something on you like jump out farther and all of your kids going to be Rachel Garcia. It's not going to happen. My kids joke, you know, that I say this all the time. Pitching is hard. If it was easy, to quote a league of their own, everyone would do it. Pitching is hard. It has to be the kids who are willing to practice. And they need mental toughness, because there will be failure. There will be frustration. And they need to have that mindset that they can get better, and that, you know what, failure's okay. It's part of the learning process. So again, one of my I'm evangelizing the strength thing, and especially with the legs. So we developed this program that you get that's totally pitcher specific. And lower right is one of my girls, Cheyenne. She's throwing 50 miles an hour, and I think she's 9 years old. Maybe she turned 10. But she's throwing 50 miles an hour with a 12-inch ball. The other one is Erin, who is almost throwing 60 miles an hour, and she just had a recent growth spurt, and you know, I call it the baby giraffe phase. And I have told her she's got to get stronger, because she just had this big growth spurt and she's lost control of her limbs. Her core has to get stronger. Her legs have to get stronger. So we've developed a free program. All you have to do is pay for the shipping, and we will send you the mini loop bands. This is something every kid in my facility has in their bag, and they better be practicing with it, because they need to get stronger if they want to improve. Drills are great, but sometimes we can't make that leap to full motion unless they get stronger in the core and in the legs. So this is a program that I've developed with some strength coaches that you could do at home. It's very easy. It's not hard to understand. Mom and dad can do it well, and it would be great for your core and your abs. So like I said, this exercise band that we're working with, I am very impassioned about this, because it is a coach when I'm not there. The girl on the left, Lyric, she's one of my favorites. She's 8 years old, and she wears the band. She's wearing the green ones. Skylar in the middle is 12. Skylar just hit her highest speed ever in quarantine, because she's working her little butt off. And Skylar's not a tall girl, and she is hitting 50 miles an hour, and she is not tall, but she's working her butt off to have the best mechanics around. And Kalia over on the right, she's one of my tall girls. She just got really tall. She used to be a short girl, and now she's really tall. So she lost some core stability, and she hates the bands, but she loves the bands. And that is my direct cell phone number, because I am impassioned about this, and I really think it works. Because, and that's, oh, I have video. How about that? Oh, look, they all have video. And that's Skylar doing a drill that's our push to open drill that I was talking about earlier. Look at what she can do and hold and then finish. You know she's got weight on her back leg when she's doing that. Kalia doing the same thing. Can I tell you, I'm so proud of them because that is extremely hard to do and hold that position. And they work tirelessly on these drills and using that belt. So again, here's who I am. And you can see some of our people who are working with us on the virtual lessons. We have I'm very much about how to teach it and to explain how to do it right. And you will notice that we have the drills that you can see online in our virtual academy. And then you can see Charlotte, who's one of my favorites. We've been working so hard for Charlotte to get in an open position. And during quarantine, I'm so proud of her. I know she's not on this right now, but she is breaking down her motion and taking advantage of this time to gain speed. And the best learning, and this is something we talk about in our mental toughness class, the greatest learning takes place at the edge of your comfort zone where you're uncomfortable. When you're trying to change mechanics, when you're trying to do something different, it's hard. But we have a time right now with this quarantine that we can break things down and try and do them differently. But the greatest change, the greatest improvement happens when you're on the edge of your comfort zone. If you're trying to change something, it should feel different. It should feel weird. It should feel uncomfortable because that's saying you're doing something different. And you know what? Understand why you're here. If you're a pitcher, pitchers enjoy pitching because they like striking people out and throwing fast, because that's the fun part of pitching. Going out there, we talk about strikeouts all the time. And strikeouts come from speed, change of speed, and then movement. Because if you're throwing 70 miles an hour, you're going to throw it past a lot of people. Change-ups are the next pitch you should learn, and it should be 8 to 10 miles an hour, slower than your fastball, and it needs to be deceptive. Major League Baseball pitchers will tell you the same thing. The best pitch is the change-up because they can't see it coming out of the hand. They can't hit it. They're swinging before the ball gets there. If you can't hit it, you're not putting it in play. So here are our partners who've been working through this pandemic. On Long Island, Stephanie with Strikeout Inc. Up in Cheshire, Connecticut, we have USA Elite Training with Coach Jen. I'm down in Pembroke Pines in Fort Lauderdale. And then we have Freitagler Fastpitch, another one of our partners. Many of you have taken part in her recruiting talks, which have been absolutely amazing during the pandemic. We've been doing these live. Coach Stephanie's been taking care of our strength training and doing live strength training. I've been doing mental toughness. Coach Heidi in Virginia has been doing a lot of recruiting. We've been trying to inspire the girls because all of us have been on the mound and we know what this feels like. And let me make one thing clear. Pitching is hard. There is failure, and we want to build these girls up. And we want to celebrate when they're working. We want to celebrate their improvement. But in the end, they have to perform. And performance, to some extent, is going out there and striking people out, because there will reach a point where if they're not throwing a certain speed, they're not going to be able to pitch anymore. You're not going to be able to go to college throwing 45 miles an hour. You're not going to be able to go to college and not be able to do these things. So there is going to reach a point where if they're not throwing the speed, they're not going to get their opportunities. So being able to throw the ball hard has to be a priority. And understanding how that works has to be priority number one for our young pitchers. So let me open it up to